Welcome back to Noctelle. At some point in World War II, German soldiers stopped believing they could win. Not officially, not all at once, but quietly, individually, in the middle of battle. Imagine being ordered to hold a position you know cannot be held, to fight for a victory that no longer exists, to die for something already lost. So here's the question history rarely answers. When did they realize it was over? Because the truth is, Germany didn't collapse in 1945. It collapsed much earlier, in the minds of the men still fighting. In the final months of 1944, the illusion was gone. The German front lines were collapsing. Exhausted soldiers without fuel or reinforcements retreated under constant pressure. Orders to resist at all costs no longer made sense. The machinery of the Reich was breaking from within. On the Eastern Front, entire divisions were destroyed in days. In the West, German soldiers watched endless columns of their own comrades marching into captivity. Victory had become a lie no one could ignore. Communications were failing, commanders were disappearing, and morale was sinking with every passing hour. But this realization did not begin in 1944. To understand it, we have to go back. On September 1st, 1939, before dawn, German guns opened fire on Polish positions. That moment marked the beginning of the most destructive war in modern history and the peak of German confidence. The early campaigns were fast, precise, and overwhelming. Poland collapsed in weeks, and France fell in less than 2 months. The German army appeared unstoppable. Blitzkrieg, lightning war, seemed like a perfect system. Every victory reinforced a dangerous belief that the system could not fail. Reports confirmed success, mistakes were ignored, and Hitler was no longer just a leader, but was seen as a flawless strategist. The first cracks appeared in the skies over Britain. The Luftwaffe failed to defeat the Royal Air Force, and the invasion never came. Still, the leadership refused to admit limits. Instead, they turned east. In June 1941, more than 3 million German soldiers invaded the Soviet Union. The plan was simple: destroy the Red Army in a few months. No preparation was made for a long war, and none for winter. At first, everything worked. Massive encirclements, hundreds of thousands of prisoners, rapid advances across vast territory. But beneath the success, reality was already changing. Supply lines stretched too far, vehicles broke down, fuel ran low, roads turned into mud, and railways could not keep up. Every kilometer gained became harder to sustain. Then winter arrived. Engines froze, weapons jammed, soldiers lacked winter clothing, and frostbite spread rapidly. Entire divisions became immobile. For the first time, the German advance stopped, and something changed. The myth of invincibility was broken. The war had shifted from movement to survival. In 1942, Germany launched a new offensive toward the south, aiming for oil and the city of Stalingrad. What followed was not a victory, but a slow destruction. Urban warfare consumed entire divisions. Every building became a battlefield, every street a killing zone. Then, in November, Soviet forces surrounded the German Sixth Army. More than 250,000 men were trapped. They requested permission to break out, but Hitler refused. He ordered them to hold their ground, promising that supplies would come by air. They did not. Food ran out. Ammunition ran out. Temperatures dropped below freezing, and the wounded piled up without treatment. By January 1943, the army was finished. Stalingrad was more than a defeat. It was the moment belief began to collapse. Still, the war continued. In 1943, Germany launched one last major offensive at Kursk, the largest tank battle in history. But the Soviets were ready. Defensive lines stretched for kilometers, reinforced with mines, artillery, and reserves. The offensive failed. From that moment on, Germany would never regain the initiative. The war had become defensive. By 1944, the reality was clear to many within the German command. The war could not be won. Some tried to act. On July 20th, a group of officers attempted to assassinate Hitler. The bomb exploded, but Hitler survived. The consequences were immediate and brutal. Thousands were arrested, hundreds executed, and the army was purged. Independent thinking disappeared, and fear replaced strategy. From that point on, orders became increasingly irrational. Cities were declared fortresses and ordered to fight to the last man. Retreat was forbidden, and surrender was considered betrayal. Entire garrisons were sacrificed without purpose. By 1945, the situation was beyond recovery. The Western Allies advanced from the west, and the Soviet army pushed from the east. Germany was collapsing on all sides, yet orders continued, often directed at units that no longer existed. Reality and command had completely separated. So why did soldiers keep fighting? Some still believed. Some feared execution. Others had no way out. And many were trying to reach one destination, the West. Because surrendering to American or British forces meant survival, while surrendering to the Soviets often meant something far worse. In the final weeks, millions of German soldiers abandoned their positions and moved westward. Entire units dissolved, and command structures collapsed. On May 7, 1945, Germany signed its unconditional surrender. The war was over, but for many soldiers, the decision had already been made long before that. Not in a single moment, but slowly, through exhaustion, through doubt, through the realization that victory was no longer possible, and that survival was the only objective left. And in the end, the war did not just collapse on the battlefield. It collapsed inside the people who were still fighting it. An army without direction, orders without logic, and millions of men walking not toward victory but toward survival. History tells us when wars end, but it rarely tells us when people stop believing in them. If you found the story interesting, you should check out my previous video where we explore another moment in history where everything changed, but almost no one realized it at the time. And if you enjoy deep cinematic storytelling like this, subscribe to Noctelle, because here history is not just told, it is experienced.